Welcome to the Wired for Success podcast, your show for ambitious, mission-driven entrepreneurs who want to build million-dollar businesses without sacrificing their health, relationships, or happiness, who understand that in order to build their empire, they need a solid foundation, and that the more they are thriving, the more their business is thriving too. This show brings you the very best from science, self-development, and entrepreneurship to set you up for sustainable success. Hi, I'm Claudia Garbett, the scientist turned mindset and high-performance coach for entrepreneurs, and I help you get wired for success. Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Wired for Success podcast, where we talk about all things science, self-development, and entrepreneurship that help you get to that next level of success in your life and business. Now, most entrepreneurs don't lose money because they had a bad idea. They lose it because of decisions they didn't even realize were risky until it was too late. And today's guest has spent more than 2 decades helping entrepreneurs, startups, and growing businesses navigate contracts, disputes, partnerships, and the legal landmines that can quietly destroy years of hard work. Matthew Fornaro isn't just a business attorney. He has a unique vantage point into how companies succeed, why founders get into trouble, and what separates businesses that thrive from those that end up in expensive legal battles. Today, we are talking about the mistakes founders never see coming, how to think about risks like a CEO, and the daily habits that help entrepreneurs stay happy, healthy, and productive while building businesses that last. Welcome, Matthew, and thank you so much for talking today.
Thank you for having me, Claudia. I'm glad to be here.
Let's dive right in, Matthew. So from your experience, what's the most expensive mistake entrepreneurs make that they don't even realize they're making?
Sure. So entrepreneurs, no matter where they are always super excited to get into business. They're very, they anticipate getting into business. They want to jump right in, particularly first-time entrepreneurs. And what they do, not just here where I am in the U.S. or, other countries, or whatever, but worldwide, is that they jump right into business as quickly as possible, and they don't do the necessary due diligence and proactive steps and planning regarding ultimate business success. They just want to get into business and start doing things. And that's ultimately what leads to most preventable situations, a lot of different circumstances, and a lot of weird outcomes that shouldn't happen if they would do that due diligence and take that time and do those necessary steps at the inception of before they even begin their business, when they begin their business, and the early stages of being in business.
So not enough planning in the beginning. Is there usually a moment where all the trouble could have been avoided? And what is the blind spot?
Sure. So what happens is, like I said, entrepreneurs, no matter where they are always super eager to get into business. They want to get started as soon as possible. They have their idea, they have their product, they have their, whatever it is they're looking to proceed forward on. And what happens is they don't start out with clear goals and clear ideas in mind. And what I mean is they should have professionals that they can call upon before they even start their business to help them set up the business and plan the business out properly. So what that means is, for instance, a business law attorney, an accountant, a banker, a commercial insurance agent, things like that. These are people who should be at your side to help you plan your business or your idea or your product or whatever before you actually start doing things. And what happens is people skip that step and just think they can do it themselves. They can get the information off the internet. They can ask, grandma or grandpa to see what they have to say or whatever. And they skip over that step. And then going more into what they skip over, they then skip over picking the correct business organization that they want to start with. They just arbitrarily pick something and go. So for instance, here in the United States, we have various business organizations. I know in Germany, you guys have your GmbH and all your fun stuff. In Italy, you have the SPA, you have your LTD in the United Kingdom, and all over the world, you have different stuff. So what happens is people just arbitrarily pick one. So when they don't consult with professionals and they don't do their due diligence, they just pick one and go with it. And that not necessarily is, fatal or a bad thing, but they should pick what's appropriate for their business and their circumstances. And that goes with consulting with professionals, consulting with like an advisory team before you start doing anything. And then the next thing that they do is once they maybe arbitrarily just pick their business organization without looking into it or doing whatever, they then kind of skip over having the correct governing documents and contracts in place. They just don't put them in place. They do the bare minimum to get into business. So they register with the government entity or they register online, and they don't have, their operating agreement or their bylaws or their articles of incorporation or whatever it is they need. And they just get going. And then later on down the road, those documents are missing, and it turns out to be a really big issue, because if you're successful, you're unable to bring people into your business, borrow money, and do things because you don't have the governing documents. And if you're in trouble, you don't have the documents, let's say how you get rid of, your partner, you have a dispute with them, how you avoid personal debt and things like that. And then the other thing that entrepreneurs, startups, founders miss is other contracts that go with things. So they skip over having like employment contracts or lease agreements or terms of service on websites and apps, and different agreements if they buy and sell things, whether it's in person, online, through a platform or whatever. So those are generally, if you had to put everything in a basket, those are the things that most entrepreneurs, most startups, most founders miss when they start up their business, is that as part of their haste in getting going, they skip over all that stuff. And then later on, it comes back to either bite them, or later comes back, they have to do it anyways. And now it's going to be much more time consuming and expensive. And it's going to be a big lesson for them to learn when they could have just done that in the first place.
Yeah, that sounds really painful. Yeah, I guess it's the side of business that's less sexy to most entrepreneurs. It's like, okay, we're excited about our ideas. We're not as excited about the legal stuff that we should focus on, as you said. But you've had a front row seat to hundreds of businesses. Have you noticed any particular patterns that predict which company is going to thrive and which is going to end up in legal trouble? So is it more on the founder personality side or more on the system side, as you mentioned before? What patterns have you noticed?
Well, it's a little bit of a combination of both. There's no necessary red flag that's up that says, oh, that business is going to fail, or a green flag that says that business is going to succeed. But part of it is that, being in business, you want to focus on business. So you want to be making business decisions. You don't want to be making legal decisions or tax decisions or regulatory decisions or different, administrative decisions that you would have professionals that you can call upon to help you make those decisions and help you focus on making business decisions. So the businesses and entrepreneurs that succeed the most, or at least generally speaking, have the ability to succeed most, are one, those that have professionals in place that help the entrepreneur focus on the business and making business decisions and not get bogged down in administrative tasks, technicalities, and things like that. And two, they're the entrepreneurs that are willing to, if they don't have that in place, or they don't understand what's going on, or they don't necessarily have all the answers, they're the ones who are willing to reach out and get those answers from professionals, from other businesses. You can ask other business owners or other people who run a business. They'll be glad to help you for the most part. Government agencies that provide information. And those are the ones that are generally most likely to succeed, are the ones that are willing to adapt, willing to learn, willing to change, and willing to understand that they don't have all the answers, and that there are people who have the answers, and they can go out and find them, and they will help them in their business.
Hiring the right people is probably one of those big puzzle pieces for sure. But do you feel that entrepreneurs generally just worry about the wrong risks? So what should actually keep them awake at night?
I think entrepreneurs worry about the right risks, but they also don't worry about certain risks, kind of like what I've been talking about so far, the due diligence and the regulatory compliance and the legal compliance and things like that. And they kind of skip over that and they focus too much on, is my SEO good? Is my social media good? Is my website good? Which is all important part of the overall picture, but they focus on that stuff and they don't focus on the very easily doable ministerial behind the scenes stuff that, like I said, that should not necessarily worry you, but you should deal with that and put that in place. So then that way you're focused on business decisions, and then you can focus on, is my SEO correct? Is my internet presence correct? Am I putting out the right brand image? Do I have the right people that I hired? Do I have the right teams? Do I have the right systems and things like that? So it all goes as one overall, universe that they should be focusing on, of what necessarily they're not focusing on this or they're focusing on that. They're focusing on generally on the right stuff. They just need to focus more on some more of the, nitty gritty day-to-day stuff that they kind of overlook, and they kind of just try to fake it until you make it, which is a American saying we have. So they try to do that and just see if they can make it through and ultimately see what happens.
Okay, so I hear you say that they should just focus a little more on the compliance side and worry less about looking great, getting maybe like SEO and website and branding and all the fun stuff, and the stuff that people see on the outside might not be as important as the structural stuff they need to focus on maybe a little more. Now, what's interesting to me is that most legal problems don't begin with the law, they actually begin with the people. So what I mean by this is, you've probably seen partnerships succeed and also explode. What's the biggest misconception people have about going into business with their friends, for instance?
Sure. So, Claudia, everyone all over the world wants to go into business to succeed. Nobody wants to go into business to fail. So
Sure.
everyone wants to win. Everyone wants to do great. Everyone wants to, be the best and have the best product or best idea or best service or whatever. And everyone's friends when they start a business, everyone's family when they start a business, everyone's buddy when they start a business. But life happens. There's interpersonal issues that arise. I never liked you. You never liked me. My spouse doesn't like you. Your spouse doesn't like me. My mom doesn't, whatever. Things arise all over the world. It happens every day, everywhere. And the problem is that you have the best of intentions when you start out your business. You may be best friends. You may be relatives. You may be acquaintances. You may be, you went to school together, whatever it is. Okay. But like I said, life happens, things happen, and things can turn. And the problem is that when people go into business together, they don't understand that that's a very real possibility. And that's a possibility that I deal with on a daily basis. And they need to be prepared that if you're truly friends with someone or you're truly family with someone and you never want to break that relationship or whatever, then you really need to have like a metaphysical kind of conversation with yourself of being, we have a great idea, we want to go into business together, but understand that once you cross that line between friendship, family, and business, that if things go wrong, you may break that relationship and it will never come back. So that's the first hurdle that you have to you wrap your mind around, whatever you want to say, is that you're going to cross that line. And once you cross that line, you can't come back. So your brother, your sister, your best friend, whatever, you're putting it on the line for business. So once you've crossed that threshold, the next threshold is that, again, you're all aligned. You all want to succeed. You all want to do well. You need to be prepared for when something bad happens or when there's an issue. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier on regarding the due diligence, the governing documents and things like that. That says what happens and what you do when there's a problem in your business. And if you don't have those documents in place, then you're going to have to go, the fallback position is, what does the law say? And the law is going to make things much more complex and much more expensive. So when you start out the business, you want to make sure, even though you don't want it to fail, even though you don't want to ruin relationships, even though we're all friends, we're all friendly, we all want to succeed, you have to have the mindset of, A, are you going to cross that line? And then if you cross that line, understand that bad things can happen, unfortunate things can happen, and make sure that you have the documents and structure in place to deal with, I want my partner out, or I got to get away from my partner. How do I get out? Or we need to wind down the business, or we need to sell the business. So that all has to be part of your inception before you even go into business. And that way, hopefully, you'll avoid issues with your friends or whatever in business. But if there are issues, you have a framework to get it done, where maybe, like I said, you've already crossed the line. So now you're in business, you've crossed the friendship line. Maybe you can repair that and go back to being friends, even though something happens with the business or whatever, based on having a framework on how to work it out.
So hope for the best, but plan for the worst.
Yes.
If you could sit in on every founder's first partnership conversation, what's the uncomfortable discussion that you would insist they have before signing anything?
Sure. If it's a group of partners, it would be what we were just talking about, it's great, we want to succeed, but what happens if it doesn't? And we have to plan for what happens if it doesn't. And we have to plan for what happens when, we don't like each other anymore and we're not friends, or, things like that. So I would tell anyone who's in that initial meeting with their partner or with their co-business, whatever you want to call it, co-shareholder, LLC member, business member, to hope for the best, expect the worst, and be prepared to deal with that. And if you want to deal with that and proceed forward, I'm not discouraging you from going into business or doing whatever. Just be advised that there's not just consequences for the business, but there's consequences for you personally, consequences for your relationship, etc. And if you're willing to put all that on the line, then proceed forward, do the due diligence, do everything I said, and go for it.
When business relationships do fall apart, is it usually because of bad contracts, or is it rather because of expectations that were never communicated? What's your experience there?
It's a little bit of a lot of different things. It's, documents weren't in place, so we don't know when something happens, who's responsible, or someone blames someone else, or vice versa. There wasn't a clear statement of what it is everyone was supposed to do in the business and how they were supposed to do it and who's responsible for what or whatever. So then you go back to the blame game that I just talked about. Then there's things where, that are unavoidable, where human nature just, appears. And, maybe your friend, isn't complying with corporate formalities or business formalities, and, is using their business credit card to go take their kids out for dinner, and, or they're, they paid for their car with their business, or, things like that happen. And then maybe they didn't tell you about it, and you found out about it from your accountant, or you found out about it from like a financial audit. So these are things that happen all the time where, maybe you didn't know the person as well as you did. Maybe the person didn't know that you're not allowed to, pay for personal expenses, truly personal expenses with business assets and things like that. And that's kind of how those situations break down and fall apart. So it's not just necessarily we didn't have documents in place, we didn't comply with formalities, you're not the person I thought you were, things like that. It's a combination of that whole universe of things comes together. And it's a little bit from everything that can lead to a lot of disputes between people in business.
Is there anything that stands out in particular that causes the most problems? Is it like values that are not aligned? Is it more personality clashes? Is it just really just the nitty gritty and the small stuff, the compliance, if you want? So Is there anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's the nuances of the compliance and things like that that starts to escalate and starts to spill into other areas that then compounds small issues or issues that shouldn't exist. And then they become, big blowups, and, you have all kinds of fallout. So you didn't have you didn't have like a business plan in place that says who does what, when, where, why, and how. So nobody ever really understood what it is they're supposed to do. And then you didn't have the documents in place that actually says who does what and how things operate or whatever. And then you have personality issues where, I love to take vacations for, 6 weeks a year, and you love to work 52 weeks a year. And we're supposed to be 50-50 partners or whatever, however you want to use the term partner or whatever. And how do you make as much money as I do? And I'm gone for, 10% of the year, and you're there the whole time. And it's things like that arise that, create the underlying business disputes and things that, lead to problems in business between people in business. It's not just, the compliance, the who does what, the personality issues, the things like that. It just all comes together and melds into like a giant pot of, the business is not going to do well. And that's just kind of how it happens. It's like a cauldron where everything just gets mixed together.
A big mess. Has your own definition of success changed after seeing how business owners live behind closed doors?
I think it has, because it's made me, from my own business of owning my own business, be more diligent and understand where a lot of the problems and issues are, and make sure that I employ that in my own business and make sure I do those things that I see other people not do or other people fail at, so that I'm not, talking about myself on our next podcast about how I failed. So I think, yeah, it's a warning, it's a warning, and it's a life lesson and a business lesson that I learn every time I deal with my clients on how, what to do and what not to do. And probably more important for me, what not to do and how not to do it. So I see that on a regular basis, and I make sure I implement all the correct things in my own business. And then I try to impart that knowledge onto my clients of, things I've seen or whatever, when I can relay that to them, so that they, can avoid those issues, or, put in those good practices or whatever in their own businesses.
One of the themes of this show is building businesses that improve your life and not consume it. So imagine your own son or daughter wanted to share a business tomorrow. What's the legal advice that you would give them? And also, what's the life advice that you would give them?
Sure. So it's interesting, because my son actually just started college 2 weeks ago, and he's going to be a finance major. So he's going to go into, I think, big business. He's looking to have his own business. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But I would just tell them, or my daughter, who's going to start high school, maybe she'll start a business, I don't know. But, I would tell them the same thing. You got to do your due diligence. You have to do all the necessary background stuff, bring in your professionals who will help you, make sure you have everything in place, make sure it's a good idea, not some, fly-by-night operation or something you saw on the internet or whatever, and make sure you do everything objectively, uniformly, and comply with all the laws and the regulations and compliance. And, hopefully your business will succeed or fail on its merits and not on technicalities or things like that.
And the life advice?
The life advice is, treat others like you want to be treated, and always put your best foot forward, because, there's no downtime, because everyone's watching at all times.
Always a good one. What is one legal investment that almost every founder thinks is expensive until they discover how expensive it is not to make it?
It would be having a business law attorney at your side at all portions of your business, not just when you get sued or when you have a dispute with your business partners or whatever. It would be before you start your business and throughout the life of your business. It's not a It's not a call the fire brigade when there's a problem relationship. It's a ongoing relationship that you should collaborate with. And it's not, you know, monetarily expensive. It's not time consuming. It's have a relationship with a professional who will keep you out of trouble. Not guaranteed, but almost guaranteed will keep you out of trouble and keep you on the right path throughout the course of your business. Because once you're on the wrong path, it's going to take a lot more time, money, and resources and time away from you on your business to fix it than it would have been to avoid it to begin with.
Sounds like similar to what you do in health as well. You want to focus on prevention rather than treating symptoms after, got sick. So pretty similar there, I'd say. Is there a question that you wish more entrepreneurs asked their lawyer, but almost no one ever does? Like, is there a specific question you wish your clients would ask you more?
I think from I like to, obviously I'm the business law attorney. I like to advise my clients on business issues, or not on legal issues, and let them make business decisions. However, having represented a lot of businesses over the years and being a business owner myself, one of the things, and again, I'll let you as my client make whatever business decisions you want. I'll help you make the legal decisions. Ultimately, you say yes or you say no. I'm never going to discourage you from doing something or whatever. But from a business advisory standpoint, I think entrepreneurs, startups, and founders should ask their trusted professionals, whether it's their accountant, their attorney, their banker, whatever, or all of them, they should ask of, okay, we talked about the legal, we talked about the compliance issues, whatever. What are your thoughts on this business in general? What have you seen? Have you seen, franchises fail? Have you seen food franchises fail like I'm doing? Have you seen apps like I have fail? Have you seen, retail stores or whatever, or online retailers, not just fail or succeed, but maybe you can tell me some business stories you have about them and kind of practices they put in that help them succeed, fail, issues that arose, whatever, outside of a legal context. So that's something that I think all professionals who help business owners and entrepreneurs and startups have that knowledge. And I think that gladly share it with you. Again, you make the ultimate decisions as the business owner or as the client, but they don't really ask those questions. And some of those questions would probably help the client avoid a lot of issues, or at least give them a lot of food for thought before they do anything.
Yeah, those are great big picture questions. So thank you so much for sharing. Let's zoom out from legal strategy to personal strategy. What daily habits keep you happy, healthy, and productive?
Sure. So I'm a huge fan of my phone. I love my phone, but I use it as productively as possible. So I do my usual like walk around, exercise stuff, whatever. But as far as like keeping my mind sound, there's 2 apps that I use on my phone that I always try to learn non-legal stuff on. And then I always try to like calm down and relax. So I have an app called Blinkist.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Yeah, Blinkist is great. So Blinkist has millions of books on it that are both fiction, nonfiction. It's got the most popular books of all time. It's got obscure books or whatever, where basically it takes it and it distills it down to between 15 and 30 minutes. And you can either read it yourself or listen to it. So I do that every day. I listen to a few of those every day and just get more knowledge about everything. And then, there's ongoing debate of you shouldn't be on your phone when it's time to go to bed or whatever, yada, yada. So there's a like a bunch of different like meditation calm down apps that I use that, like white noise things or whatever, and like affirmations and stuff like that I kind of like wind down for like 30 minutes each night. So then I can like hopefully sleep at night and have a good night's sleep. So those are 2 personal habits in addition to my regular, try to eat healthy, walk around, exercise, do stuff like that, take vacations, things like that I do on a daily basis to try to, keep everything on course.
Thank you so much for sharing. And by the way, I've had one of the co-founders of Blinkist on this podcast as well. So you might want to check out
tell them I love their app and it's incredible. And I wish as a lazy American, I wish I had Blinkist when I had to do my English reports in middle school and high school, because I could have gone through those books in 30 minutes and had the rest of my week free. So
sure. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners today?
Sure. Just if you're going into business, if you're an entrepreneur, startup, or a founder, just don't be discouraged. Keep your enthusiasm, but just make sure that you do everything the correct way. You do it uniformly, objectively. You don't cut corners. Bring in professionals who will help you and answer all your questions. If you can't afford professionals, you don't know professionals, whatever, ask other people in business, ask friends, ask, who owns your local restaurant that you go to, ask other people, who do they use for trusted professionals or whatever, who would they recommend? And they always have recommendations or whatever, or ask them, what does it take to run a successful business or to be a successful entrepreneur? They'll gladly give you advice. Other people in business, unless they're, very insular or whatever, very myopic, want to help other people in business, and they'll gladly, give you information, advice, and point you in the right direction.
Yeah, build this network and find people that support you. So last but not least, where can people find you online if they would like to connect or actually work with you?
Sure. So just go to my website, fornarolegal.com, which is just my last name, legal.com. It's got all my contact information. You can call me, email me, message me. It's got all my social media, all my blogs, all my videos, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you have. And if I can't answer it, I'll find you someone who will be able to answer it.
Perfect. Thank you, Matthew, for sharing all those tips and insights with all of us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Claudia.
Absolutely. So keep up the great work. Take care and talk soon. Bye-bye.
You too.
Thank you so much for listening to the Wired for Success podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please take a sec to rate and review my show or share it with a friend. That way you can support the show and help me reach and support other entrepreneurs like yourself as well. If you would like my help to figure out how you can go from overwhelmed and overworked hustler to empowered and confident leader, check out my website at www.wiredforsuccess.solutions and book a free 20-minute strategy session with me. Can't wait to help you get wired for success. Until next time, take care. Bye.